These houses have all this stuff no one would miss for a while, if ever.
I want to talk with you, Jonathan, first off about the dialogue in the show. I'm sure you've been pestered about it like crazy. I am just so amazed at the quick wit of it all. And I was reading that you were trying to kind of make the dialogue like your action of this show, like the dialogue, the conversations between these characters serve that action-y purchase and packed a punch. Could you kind of talk to me about how you developed that writing?
Well, not that exactly, but more that I consider a 5-page dialogue scene every bit as much of a set piece as a fight, because it's people aren't running around and there's not a lot of moving parts, but it's still, things have to build. Everybody's got their sort of choice of weapons, but the energy has to build, then there has to be release, it has to tell a story. So I was just saying, like, the set pieces on this show aren't action set pieces for the most part. They're, in a lot of cases, they're just verbal jousts.
Very much so. And also, too, I love that you mentioned that, like, all the syllables were meticulously thought out. Like, there's a dance to the dialogue in this, and your cast was talking about it all throughout today's press day. You got to work with, obviously, Jon Hamm as your leading man here, but he was also an executive producer on this project. Considering that this is something that came from your brain, what was it like to collaborate with Jon in a producing standpoint?
It was fantastic and extremely helpful. I actually approached Jon before I wrote the show, and I pitched him the idea, and his excitement about the idea got me to write the pilot. And then when he signed on to the pilot, that's when we set up the show at Apple. So having him in it from inception means he's incredibly invested in it. He's invested in the success of it. I think he's really helpful when we're also roughly the same age. We've lived through the same decades. This is a show about midlife, and having a partner who's basically from a very different perspective, lived the same decades I've lived, and understands the ennui that I'm writing about is really helpful. And also a guy who literally knows everyone in Hollywood helps. When I wanted to cast Amanda, when I wanted to cast Olivia, he was incredibly helpful in making that happen. He's a fantastic partner to have.
Yeah, that's so wonderful to hear. Jon's invested in the show. Apple's invested in the show. Y'all got the green light for season 2.
Yeah.
Long before season 1 even hit the streaming service. Did you always envision this as a multi-season story?
Yeah, it was pitched as a 3-season show. And obviously in success, we would consider doing more. But yeah, it was always it was never a limited. And I think there's so much story to tell that, we could go on, but for the purposes of a pitch, I did a 3-season pitch. And there's a really nice 3-season arc, but in great success, we will open that up and figure out how to keep telling the story.
Yeah, I don't want to leave Westmont Village anytime soon. It's like a car crash. It's like I can't turn away from all the drama that's going on. I'll wrap with this, Jonathan. One of my favorite characters in this show is Coop's monologue or the voiceover that he has throughout. And it kind of came off as almost like a different character, if you will, like a different side to the same coin. Did you envision that voiceover operating kind of different to how Cooper operates as a character?
Yeah, it was exactly that way. I was a big fan of the film noir movies of the 60s. In particular, Philip Marlowe, Sam Spade, Humphrey Bogart, Robert Mitchum, those type of movies. And the voiceover was always so important to those movies in setting a tone. And so what I wanted to use the voiceover for was not to tell the story and not to explain what's happening, but to set the tone and, like you said, become another character on the show, so that you really feel like you're being brought behind the curtain in a way. And that's the first words I wrote of the show were actually Coop's first voiceover. That's how I sort of got into the show.
I want to talk to you both about, I was reading that you would have some conversations in each other's trailers about, the dynamic between Sam and Mel and how you would execute that on screen. I'm curious about those conversations that you would get to have off screen and how building that rapport kind of elevated your performances.
I mean, you always want to have the connection. If you're going to break up a friendship or a marriage, you want to start in a good place, right? So you can there's the fall. So that's what we were working on, is to try to make it mean something.
You say working on as if, were you working on our friendship or were you just being my friend? Because I was just being your friend.
No, it was completely Machiavellian. I didn't really
this whole
like
time
you.
I thought we were friends and hanging out, and she's talking about Martha's Vineyard.
Martha's Vineyard?
Martha's.
You are.
Olivia, I do have a question for you specifically. You said that part of the reason you're attracted to this role is that your character is one of the only ones that doesn't have a wealthy background. Like, she married into this world, so she has a different life experience growing up. Can you talk to me about kind of developing her headspace and who she was where we start this show?
When you first meet Sam, episode 1, she is going through a huge life upheaval. Her husband has left her for a much younger woman. She has 2 children. She's in the middle of a very bitter divorce with a man who has a lot of money. And she's sleeping with her best friend's ex-husband, which I should put a little asterisk there. The best friend cheated on that husband, which is why he was up for grabs. So the first time you meet her, she's really like in a tornado and just trying to keep her shit together. She wanted to be in this life. She married for money. She didn't marry for love. It's really hard to, I mean, I don't look at her and pity her at all. I think these are the choices that Sam made. And now she's here and her life is falling apart. And that's kind of the consequence that she should have expected for picking this life. But that doesn't mean that I don't also have so much empathy for this character as well, because, you know, she was doing what she thought she was supposed to do. She was told from an early age, make money, marry wealthy, you know, take care of yourself. Money is what's going to make you happy. Money will take care of you. And here she is, and she realizes that not only does money not take care of you, but it leaves you with nothing if it's the only thing you focused on.
The show gave me a jolt of energy when I was watching it this past weekend. That's a lot thanks to the dialogue. That's a lot thanks to the voiceover that happens. I love a good voiceover. And considering the fact that the voice is Coop, a character that you guys are all playing very closely opposite with, I'd love to ask you all, how did that voiceover impact your performances? We can just kind of go down and start with Isabel.
Ooh, how did it impact? I feel like it gives you kind of insight, internal monologue wise, into like what he's thinking and where he's at currently. So I feel like that kind of gave me a little bit of insight as to where Tori's father's headspace was.
Yeah, I don't think that I love the voiceover. I love when he's talking about like the watches and like
those are so
you know what I
cool.
mean? Yeah. You're like, but because my character is so far removed from that world, like she represents kind of an outside eye. So she's kind of like, she's not normal. But she does kind of represent the normal person in this kind of delusional, abnormal world. And so for me, the voiceover wasn't as it didn't tell me much about my character, because you don't really get that much, because I think that what Andy's and Allie's relationship is so rooted in their reality, and it's very removed from the reality of this like special world.
Yeah, I think one of the reasons why Hunter partially resents his dad is because he doesn't know what he's thinking and why he's doing all the things that he's doing. So, I mean, I kind of tried to forget about all the monologues while I was playing my part.
I want to congratulate you all, obviously, on the show renewal. Like, this is pretty unprecedented, getting a season 2 well before season 1 ever premieres. Do you all know what's in store for you guys in season 2? Are you privy to that yet?
Wouldn't you like to know?
It's my job to know.
Only a little, but only a little. But I can say Allie continues to make a fool of herself.
Can I ask a follow-up on that? Did you guys know going into season 1 that like you were setting stuff up in season 1 for more?
No, not at all. I didn't really? Know at all. No.
I didn't.
Did you?
I didn't know anything was for sure, but I had a feeling that was the goal. But you never know. You never know. But I was definitely holding out hope, and
I can tell things are set up really well.
Yeah.
Things are set up really well, but I had no idea.
Congrats on the show. I'd love to start by asking, there's so many different dynamics going on involved in this neighborhood, that being Westmont Village. Can you kind of describe where Barney and Grace fit into this whole dynamic?
I think Barney and Grace are an example of a family that is really trying to make it work and is sort of succeeding in making it work. They've got most of their stuff together. Their largest common obstacle right now is the never-ending house renovation and the sort of pre-existing familial dynamic issues that start to surface more and more in the show. But I think that they are an example of a family that we get some insight into. And we start to see that while there might be challenges, there's a stability there as well and a sort of dedication to each other. And so I think that creates a slightly different dynamic for them than exists for the rest of Westmont Village, which is largely populated by either couples we don't know that well, or couples that don't seem to like each other very much, or couples that have already dissolved into divorce and scandal and what have you.
I want to start by talking about the dialogue in the show. It is so witty, it is so choppy, it is so in your face. And your showrunner, Jonathan, described it as almost being the action of this show, that every syllable was written with an intent and a purpose. Could you both kind of talk to the dialogue that you saw on page and then how you went about executing it in that way that Jonathan envisioned?
Absolutely. I mean, he couldn't be more right. I think sometimes the direction is in the script, strangely. Sometimes you read scripts and you can't really imagine how they're going to happen. With Tropper's writing, you know as an actor exactly what you need to come in and do, which is such a gift. You know, there's room for collaboration always with Tropper, but it is rare to read a script and be like, oh, I know exactly how I'm going to play this because it's in the writing. So I have a theater background, so I never approach a script with like, let me just put in my own you know, I always think language is to be elevated and respected, especially when professional writers take the chance. But in this situation, it's so important because part of what makes the show tick is that dialogue, is that music in the show, I think.
Oh, yeah. I love that, the music in the show. Jonathan's writing, there's nothing out there like it, in my opinion. And for myself, and I'm going to speak to being a Black actor, there's a lot of stuff you read from white writers or creators where I'm like, put a little more soul into that, or you know, shit like that. Whereas Jonathan's writing, he just speaks from a humanistic, like character-driven standpoint.
Truthful.
Yeah, everything is just grounded from start to finish. And I don't remember reading something where I could see it, like you said, musically. I saw it dancing off the page. That's the only way I can describe it, is that I saw these words dancing off the page and it was already living and breathing before any of us actors had come together to actually breathe the life into it, which speaks to him. And I'm glad Jonathan bragged to y'all about how good he is.
Totally.
That's my guy. He's so good at what he does. It's really, really cool to be a part of.
What'd you get up to last night?
Oh, you know, not much.